Yo, what is up guys, your boy IzuKage here with part 3 of What If Naruto was Muzan's Reincarnation. So a lot of you have been wondering when's the next part to Loki series dropping. Pretty soon, since it's been a while, I'm just gonna put it all in a movie, nice and simple. Also, the poll for the ship came out to be Kaguya. I'm still at a loss for words how I'm gonna even have that happen semi-realistically. So I'll get to that in the next part, but with that all out of the way, let's just get right into the what if. Talk to me next. Look. So we start where we left off last time with Team 7 escorting Tazuna to the land of waves. So as the group was walking, Kakashi noticed a puddle in front of them, which he quickly realized was a genjutsu since it hasn't rained in weeks. So the group passed the puddle, he didn't bring it up or anything. And as they did, the demon brothers jumped out ready to kill Tazuna. Naruto looked back at the two, and in speeds faster than any of them could perceive, Naruto jumped and placed both his feet on each of their backs and pushed them down into the ground and landed on top of them. Kakashi jumped in front of Tazuna because, he still thought the demon brothers were coming towards him, but when he looked, he realized that they weren't. There was this massive dust cloud, and when it settled, he saw Naruto standing on both the brothers. Sakura screamed in fear and rushed over to Sasuke for protection, and Kakashi thought, I couldn't even sense his movements. Naruto, what are you? Naruto stepped off the brothers and said, Kakashi, you can clean this up. And Kakashi was in shock, and without even thinking, he did as Naruto said, even though Naruto wasn't controlling him in any way. So Naruto walked up to Tazuna and said, rest assured that this is the best team in Konoha. And Sasuke and Sakura were confused because, unlike Kakashi, they didn't even know about the demon brothers' attack. So as far as they knew, Naruto launched an attack on an enemy that they didn't even know was there, so it was short of incredible. So Kakashi made sure both of the brothers were dead and sealed their bodies into scrolls, and now they were back on the move. Sakura walked behind Naruto, entranced by his incredible strength. And she thought, what if Naruto could teach her how to get stronger, and then Sasuke would finally like her, finally notice her even. But her thoughts were cut short when a thick fog rolled in, and Kakashi held out his hand in front of the group and said, wait. And they stood in complete silence for a second, and then the sound of something flying through the air could be heard, and Kakashi yelled, duck. The whole team dropped to the ground except Naruto, who just stood there as if nothing was happening, and the executioner's blade came cutting right through Naruto's neck. His head flew off and blood started spraying all over his teammates, and Naruto's body dropped to the ground dead. And the sword lodged itself into a tree and Zabuza landed on it, and he looked at the group and realized he scored a kill. He smiled and said, seemed that kid didn't learn listening in the academy. And Kakashi was in shock. His hands were shaking violently and he looked at Zabuza, and in a fit of rage the tomoe in his eyes started spinning, merging into the Mangekyo Sharingan. Kakashi ran at Zabuza, who jumped away and pulled his sword out of the tree, and they both stared each other down on a lake. And Kakashi rushed him, getting in close enough for taijutsu, and Zabuza, he wasn't expecting this barrage of attacks from Kakashi because he was used to him staying back, or at least from the stories of battles he'd heard with, Kakashi fighting. He would often just stay back and provide support or, counter with his Sharingan, using his copying abilities. So Kakashi began dodging all of Zabuza's attempts to cut him with his sword because his perception of time slowed, and he dodged all his attacks effortlessly. Kakashi then kicked Zabuza back, and while he was down, Kakashi weaved 10 hand signs in a split second, like if you blink, you would have missed it, and said, Chidori. Kakashi ran at Zabuza full speed, intending to kill him, but Haku, watching from the sidelines, saw Zabuza was going to die. So he quickly jumped out and he threw Senbone at Kakashi, but the Senbone phased right through his body and Kakashi plunged his Chidori into Zabuza, killing him on impact. Haku shouted, "No! Zabuza!" He weaved the multiple hand signs and then slammed his hand into the ground, sending out a massive glacier of ice. Kakashi watched as it came closer and closer, unable to do anything because he hit his limit. Then a shadowy figure appeared in front of Kakashi, and its hand grew to massive sizes. Imagine, well, if you guys watch MHA, Kendo from Class 1B, her massive fists. So it grew to that size and it punched the glacier, stopping it from coming further. And it started cracking until the whole glacier broke, shattering all the ice. Haku watched surprised because her ultimate ability was demolished in a single move. But then a figure appeared behind him and shoved his hand into Haku before ripping it out. Sasuke was fully focused on the fight, but he remembered Naruto, and when he turned around, Naruto's body was gone. Sasuke was confused and he turned back to the fight and looked at Haku and tried to make out who that person was, and well, Haku was on the ground and standing over him was Naruto. Sasuke was confused, so confused he couldn't even come up with anything to say. He was that shocked. Sakura too, but she got up as Naruto was walking towards them and she held her shirt, and with tears streaming down her face, she ran up to Naruto and tried punching him, but Naruto grabbed her fist and Sakura, with tears running down her face, said, "I hate you. I thought you died." And Naruto raised an eyebrow and said, "Why would it matter to you? As long as you have Sasuke, you should be alright." And Naruto chuckled a bit, but Sakura was serious. She said, "We're a team, okay? So I'll risk my life if it means we can all go back to the village safe." And Naruto, hearing this, paused for a minute. He didn't expect this kind of loyalty from Sakura, but he had an evil grin and thought maybe he'll test her limits one day. But Naruto turned around and said, "It's not a big deal, let's go." And Naruto walked to Kakashi and asked if he was alright, but Kakashi didn't respond. He wasn't moving, and Naruto looked into his eyes and Kakashi was completely out of it. He pushed himself far past his limits, and the only thing keeping him standing was really his willpower. So Naruto hoisted Kakashi over his shoulders and rounded up the team to get a move on. Sasuke was walking at the very back of the group and he was thinking, like, are we really just gonna ignore the fact that like we just saw Naruto die? He just can't wrap his head around it, and Sakura seems like she's trying to pretend it didn't happen, and so is Tazuna. But he knows what he saw, and he saw Naruto's head get cut right off. And now he's just standing walking up like nothing ever happened. Something isn't right, and Sasuke knows that he'll figure it out. So after walking for a bit, Tazuna brought the two to this guy that he knows, a fisherman, and they get into his boat and they row him over to the actual land of waves. So while in this little boat, they see the land of waves and it was way worse than they expected. Poverty was, you can stare at the village and you could realize that it was not prosperous. People were just standing out in the streets, laying out because they really had no homes to go to. This was their home, but they didn't own any land. So after this boat ride, they get to the docks and the mist actually starts to clear up a bit. And after this, they all head to Tazuna's house, like he shows them the way. So as soon as they get into his house, Tazuna's daughter comes and greets her father and, she gives him a massive hug. While Team 7 takes Kakashi to one of the guest rooms where he's laid down to rest. Because Kakashi, imagine Kakashi from canon, his exhaustion, times that by 10. Because Kakashi has never used a Mangekyo, he has no experience with it. It was all really just instinct. He just did it on the fly. He didn't even know what he was doing, to be honest. So after laying Kakashi down to rest, Tazuna, he calls the rest of Team 7 out, and they have a quick feast because Tazuna's daughter, bro, I'm telling you, she's Gordon Ramsay reincarnation, because her cooking, not even Gordon Ramsay, Ichiraku, because she is a god in the kitchen. So they all have a massive feast, and their stomachs are filled to the brim. But while they were eating, Tazuna's grandson, Inari, he came out, and seeing the team, and well, Tazuna, he was talking about what they were there for, and Inari, he's adamant that they cannot defeat Gato, and he keeps saying this to them, and Naruto, he turns around and just stares at Inari. That's all he does, he just stares at him, and Inari gets scared from this, and he runs behind a wall for protection. And Naruto said, "You want to repeat that?" And Sakura, she quickly chimed in and said, "Naruto, cut it out, it's just a kid." So Naruto, he just smirks and went back to eating. Inari had a bad feeling about Naruto. He knew he was no good, so he made sure to go to his room so he would stay as far away from him as possible. So after eating, everyone cleaned up, and Team 7, because they were tired, they had to share a room. It wasn't that much of a problem. They just slept on the floor in futons. So everyone goes to bed, and in the middle of the night, Naruto's eyes open up and he slips out of his futon, not alerting anyone, or well, at least that's what he thinks. So Naruto, he makes his way outside, and the moon is high in the sky, and he walks calmly to the forest surrounding the land of waves. And he waits there for about 2 minutes. Then 3 high-class demons appear. One is the Hokage himself, and the other 2 were a part of Hiruzen's personal Anbu squad, which Naruto made sure to turn into demons also. So all 3 of them arrive, and Naruto says, "You're late." Hiruzen and the other demons dropped to their knees and said, "We're sorry, master, but the heads of the clans in the village, they wanted to have a meeting and it was just chaos." Naruto says, "I didn't ask for an excuse. Anyways, what says the group of demons in the sand?" Hiruzen began to speak, and he said, "Orochimaru had infiltrated the village and plans to assassinate the Kazekage. Right now he's posing as a civilian. Should we take care of him?" Naruto thought for a second and said, "No, I'd like to see what he plans to do. But before you go, Hiruzen, I have something special for you." Hiruzen stood up and said, "Yes, master." So Naruto shoved his nails into Hiruzen's stomach, driving a lot of his blood into his body, amping up Hiruzen's demonic abilities. And Hiruzen held his stomach in pain and dropped to the ground, and his body began shaking. And Naruto said to the other 2 demons, "Take him back to the village. His transformation will take 2 days." The 2 did as they were told and carried Hiruzen back to the leaf. So Naruto turned around to walk back, and that's when he saw a figure quickly go behind a tree. And Naruto laughed and said, "Sasuke, what are you doing up so late?" And Sasuke was hiding behind a tree, and he was hesitant to show himself, but after taking a nervous gulp, he came out from behind the tree. Sasuke demanded to know what Naruto was and why the Hokage was bowing to him. Naruto laughed and said, "I don't have to tell you anything, Sasuke." And Sasuke was trying to find anything to help his argument, and then he said, "Well, if you don't, I'll tell Kakashi and the rest of the village." And Naruto slowly walked up to Sasuke, who took out a kunai and took a defensive stance. But Naruto just came closer and closer while Sasuke said, "Stay back, I'm warning you." And every step Naruto took towards him, Sasuke took a step back until he hit a tree and he had nowhere else to go. At that point, Naruto is still walking towards him, and he said, "The reason why you won't tell anyone about any of this is because I'll kill you." And Naruto's stomach began to open up and sharp teeth began forming, and Naruto's whole stomach turned into a monstrous mouth, and then it snapped shut, reverting back to normal. Sasuke was trembling out of fear, and Naruto walked up to him and put a hand on his shoulder and said, "Come on, let's get back before Kakashi gets worried." And Naruto walked off with Sasuke still freaked out about what he just saw. So the next morning while at breakfast, Sasuke, he didn't even have breakfast. He made sure to go outside before Naruto even woke up and went to supervise the bridge builders early. So after they finished eating, Naruto joined them, and this, nothing really happened. They just patrolled, made sure that no one else tried to attack the bridge builders, and that was really it for the next 3 days. And on the third day, Kakashi finally recovers from his, not really injuries, but his exhaustion. Like his chakra has returned to normal levels from his fight with Zabuza. So after he gets up, he realizes that, his team has been doing a pretty good job. So he doesn't really have to instruct them anymore. And of course, he's still in those crutches. So after 4 days of being in the Land of Waves, the bridge builders finally complete the bridge. And they had no other fights, but it seemed to be going too well. And that's when Gato and his men arrive, because they haven't heard back from Zabuza. So if you want something done right, they decided to do it themselves. But they had chose the wrong group of ninjas, because this was probably the worst fight they would get in. And Kakashi, he wanted to stretch his legs, make sure that, he was back to 100%. And Sasuke, he had been doing nothing the entire trip, so he wanted to get in on some action. So the both of them worked together to take down all of the mercenaries, and that was pretty much it. So after that's all said and done, the bridge is finally completed, but it needs a name, and that's when Tazuna names it the Great Naruto Bridge. So with their mission complete, Team 7 returns to the Land of Waves. The journey is less than a day, so it isn't that bad. And they get back to the Leaf Village and they report to Hiruzen. But when they get to his office, Hiruzen is looking a bit different than what they left him. Hiruzen's Hokage outfit is completely different. It's more akin to the Kazekage's outfit. When Orochimaru was wearing it, it was basically hiding most of his face except his eyes, but Hiruzen's Hokage robe was hiding his entire face. He had a face mask pulled up to his nose similar to Kakashi, but not only that, Hiruzen had a hat similar to what the Akatsuki would wear. Basically, he had these white ribbons hiding his face, just like how Itachi and Kisame would wear it when they first appeared in the Leaf Village. So they are, surprised by this, but they don't really question it because maybe he has his own reasons for it. They don't want to pry. But of course, they get their reward for their C rank mission, which was upgraded to A rank one. So after getting their rewards, Naruto and the rest of them return home. But the next day, they are called to the training grounds by Kakashi. So Team 7 makes their way to the training grounds, and it's pretty early in the morning. It's like 8 a.m. So when they get to the training grounds, they see Kakashi there, and they're wondering what's up. Do they have another mission or something? But Kakashi explains to them that the Chunin exams are up and coming, so they should make sure to prepare well for the exams, and that's what they did. After getting this information from Kakashi, they all go in their separate directions in their styles of training. Sasuke, he was more jutsu based, like he wanted to get a lot of jutsu in his, skill set and master them. So Sasuke, he went to the Uchiha library where he had an assortment of fire jutsu that he needed to learn. Sakura, she was going to follow Sasuke, but he went too fast, so she couldn't keep up, and she was just left on the fields with Naruto. So she decided to ask Naruto something that she's been thinking of for a very long time. She walks up to Naruto and says, "Naruto, can you train me?" Naruto straight up asked Sakura, "Why should I?" And Sakura, she couldn't come up with an answer and said, "I'll do anything you need, just please, I want to be more powerful." And Naruto said, "Are you sure that's the whole truth?" And Sakura was hesitant and dropped her head and said, "I was also hoping Sasuke would like me even more." Naruto was thinking of turning her into a demon, but the weakness to light that she would develop would be a hindrance, considering, she does have good chakra control. She may be able to do what Naruto does, but Naruto has actually trained specifically chakra control for years, and for it to be able to cover his whole body. So Naruto is really doubtful that she would be able to, so he just tells her he can't train her. But he would suggest asking Kurenai, because Kurenai sort of suits Sakura perfectly. So Sakura, hearing this news, she perks up and says, "Thank you, Naruto," and runs off to find Kurenai sensei. So over these 2 weeks, Naruto really didn't do much. But let's quickly switch perspectives to Hiruzen. He was returning to his house, which is, right next to the Hokage mansion. And after Naruto did that thing to him, he doesn't know what it is, did that thing to him in the forest by the Land of Waves, he's been feeling a lot stronger. So Hiruzen went to his personal training ground and he squared up to punch a log. And when he punched it, a massive gust of wind came from his punch, and this sent some of the trees in front of him collapsing, it tore them down. The closest thing I could relate Hiruzen's punches to is All Might's punch. It is exactly what All Might punches look like, air pressure and everything. So Hiruzen was amazed at this newfound power. Maybe he's even stronger than Naruto himself. But we switch back to the Demon King with his teammates ready to enter the Chunin exams. So all three of them enter the academy, and immediately they are met with this large crowd blocking the doorway. But Naruto and the others, they easily slipped through, it wasn't any problem. And Sakura realized that this was a genjutsu and the actual floor is upstairs. So all three of them make their way up, and this caught the attention of Neji's team because no other genin could see through this genjutsu. So they had a bit of interest, and Lee especially, because they had a Uchiha on their team and they know Sasuke's abilities, but even more Naruto's, because he was the rookie of the year. So they were even more interested in this Uzumaki. So they followed the three of them upstairs, and before they enter the room for the first stage, Lee approaches the team and asks Naruto for a fight. And Naruto, he would, like any other day of the week, he would definitely say yes, but Naruto, he isn't trying to get into anything right now. He just wants to get this over and done with. So he tells Lee they'll meet in the exams and then they'll have a proper fight. And Lee, hearing this, he was actually pretty excited now because Naruto was basically challenging him. But, he was getting pumped up to fight Naruto in an actual exam. So the group of them, Team 7, they walk into this room and are immediately met by stares of everyone around them. And they were watching the Team 7 sort of trying to intimidate them. But Naruto, he wasn't the least bit phased, and he just walked into a corner and sat when, his other two teammates followed him over because they really didn't know what to do. So after waiting there for about 5 minutes, Ibiki comes into the room and tells everyone to sit properly and get ready for the test. So everyone sits, at their assigned seat. They sit straight because Ibiki, he's kind of intimidating. And after all of that, he starts to explain this stage of the Chunin exams. So he goes over how there will be 9 questions, but the 10th one will be saved for last, and they'll have to figure that one out. So they'll be given the test, and the only rule is don't cheat. Well, don't get caught cheating. That's specifically what he says. And then after that, he just begins, puts an hour on the timer, and then starts everyone off. So everyone starts doing their exams, and of course, people are cheating similar to as they did in canon, like Gaara using his sand eye, other people using chakras to tilt the mirrors in the ceiling. They were really creative about it, but Naruto, he didn't have to do any of that because he could simply answer the questions because to him, they weren't really that hard. But after the hour timer had finally went up, there was about like 70% of the class left, the original people left. The other 30% were caught cheating, so they were kicked out. And after all of this, Ibiki, he starts to explain the 10th question. And this question is really important because if they were to get it wrong, they will be barred from ever taking the tuning exams ever again. So this really tested people's resolve, and many started leaving because what's the point of getting one question wrong and never being able to promote to tuning when you can't just prepare even more and come back next year? So a lot of people chose that option, and by the end of Ibiki's, psychological evaluation, he drove off another 50% of the class, leaving only 20% of the original class left. And after that, he broke the news saying there really was no 10th question. He was just playing some mind games with all of them. And some people were angry, but hey, they passed either ways. So after that said and done, Anko, she bust through the window like a freaking hooligan, and shards fly all over Ibiki and some of the students in the front row. And Ibiki, he's like, "Anko, I told you there's a front door for a reason." And Anko, she's laughing, saying, "Come on, Ibiki, don't be such a hothead." But Ibiki, he just brushes off the glass and walks out. And Anko is like, "I don't know what's his problem. But anyways, you maggots, make your way over to the forest of death." So as they were instructed, everyone in the class makes their way over to the forest of death. And once they're there, everyone sees Anko standing on a rock, and she begins explaining the rules of the forest of death. And one rule that she makes evidently clear is that killing is allowed. And after hearing this, people are actually getting scared and wondering if they should leave, but their teammates make sure they don't. And Naruto, he's in the crowd, listening to all of this, and there's someone behind him acting really strange. This person has a really long tongue, and Anko, she's seeing Naruto being distracted, so she throws a kunai, trying to just barely cut Naruto across the cheek. But Naruto, he just grabs the kunai in midair and then appears behind Anko. And this is so fast that no one even sees it. Anko is like, where did he even go? And Naruto just, taps her shoulder, and this gets Anko's attention. He turns around, and Naruto, he just hands her the kunai and said, "Oh, you dropped this." And Anko is like, thanks? And Anko, her mind is racing, thinking, what did she just witness? What is this kid's speed? She didn't even see him for a second. But Anko, she manages to control herself and tells everyone to head over to the tents to collect their scrolls. So Team 7 heads over to the tents, and they're given a earth scroll and are given a number, a 3-digit number, and this corresponds to the gate that they would have to wait at before entering the forest of death. So Team 7, they head to their number gate and just wait there until Anko gives them the ready to enter the forest of death. And in about 1 minute, Anko comes over these speakers and says, "Get ready and prepare to die, because this is the forest of death." The gates swing open and Team 7 rush in, ready to claim their victory. But that is where I'm going to be leaving this one off. Thank you guys for sticking around to the end of the video, and if you liked it, and if you like my content in general, consider subscribing. Also guys, make sure to check out some of the links in the descriptions. We got the Discord server, we got merch, we got some cool stuff down there, so make sure to check it out. But with that all said, I'll see you guys in the next What If.